Chronicles of the Ashen Crow, chapters 21-30. Chapter 21. The Risen Imp, which Kaelen had dubbed Smoke, hovered obediently by his bedside as he awoke. There was no fatigue, no lingering pain from the mana atrophy that had plagued him for years. Instead, he felt a deep, resonant hum of power from the paradox core within his chest, its integrity having regenerated to 78% overnight. The core was not just a power source. It was a part of him, healing and strengthening him constantly. He observed Smoke through his Warden interface. Risen, Smoke, formerly Dust Imp. A rank, A. Status, Idle. Abilities, Basic Reconnaissance, Minor Distraction. Core Sync, 1%. Core Sync. That was new. It seemed his Risen were not just independent minions. They were tethered to him, drawing a tiny fraction of his power to exist in this world. The more he had, the greater the passive drain. But his core integrity regeneration seemed more than capable of handling it for now. He commanded Smoke to phase through the wall and report on the hallway. The imp vanished, and a moment later, a ghostly image of the empty, dimly lit corridor superimposed itself over Kaelen's vision for a second before fading. Reconnaissance. It was a simple, yet invaluable ability. Today's job was a C-rank infestation in the city's old sewer systems. No spatial anomalies to fix, just straightforward phantom extermination. It was a chance to see how his guildmates operated in a direct fight, and more importantly, a chance to gather more cores. He looked at Smoke. He couldn't bring it with him openly, but perhaps he didn't need to. Focusing on the Risen, he willed it to become inert. Smoke dissolved back into shadows, condensing into its core form, which dropped into Kaelen's palm. He pocketed it, a hidden weapon, ready to be deployed. It was time to go to work. Chapter 22. The Vermin's Bane operation was a stark contrast to the eerie silence of the whispering caverns. The stench of stagnant water and decay was overwhelming, and the only light came from the glow rods, mounted on their shoulders, and the faint, sickly green luminescence of the sludge underfoot. The tunnels were cramped, the sounds of dripping water and skittering echoes putting everyone on edge. The phantoms here are slimefesters and corpse rats, Silas announced, his voice echoing slightly in the confined space. Low C rank. Fast, numerous, and they attack in swarms. Their cores are practically worthless. So focus on extermination, not collection. Rorick, you're the anvil. Lyra, you're our eyes. Jax, watch our flanks. Kaelen, stick close to me and call out any large mana concentrations. If we get swarmed, we fall back to the last chokehold. They moved in a tight formation. It wasn't long before they found the infestation. A nest of corpse rats, skeletal rodents wreathed in necrotic energy, surged from a side tunnel. There were dozens of them. Contact front. Rorick boomed, slamming his shield down. The rats scrambled against the unyielding metal. Lyra didn't have the room for her rifle. Instead, she drew a long, wickedly sharp combat knife in one hand and a small, palm-sized pistol in the other. Her movements were a blur of precise, lethal economy. Each shot from her pistol punched a hole through a rat skull, and her knife severed spines and limbs with surgical accuracy. Jax fought with a short sword and a buckler, his movements fluid and defensive, protecting Rorick's exposed sides and finishing off any rats that got past the shield. Silas was a whirlwind. His axe wasn't elegant. It was brutally efficient. He didn't just kill the phantoms. He dismantled them with powerful, cleaving strikes. Kaelen watched, his veil shroud active. The phantoms ignored him completely, flowing around him as if he were a stone in a river. He saw a corpse rat leap towards Jax's unguarded back. Left, Jax. He called out. Jax spun, his buckler deflecting the creature just as Lyra's pistol shot took it out of the air. Thanks, kid. Jax grunted. Kaelen didn't just watch. He analyzed. His Warden system tagged each phantom, assessing its threat level and, most importantly, its core. Phantom, corpse rat, C-rank minion. Threat level, low. Mana signature, death aspected, fading. Assimilation potential, very low. Risen conversion viable, yes. He could turn these into soldiers. Weak, but numerous. He needed a moment, an opportunity. The opportunity came when a larger phantom, a bloated slimefester, oozed from a large pipe, blocking the main tunnel. Focus fire on the big one, Silas ordered. While the team concentrated their attacks on the C-rank boss, Kaelen lingered near the back, near the dissipating remains of the slain corpse rats. He knelt, pretending to check a bootlace, and palmed one of the fading, pea-sized grey cores. He focused, channeling a trickle of power, initiating binding ritual. Shadow enveloped the core. In seconds, a new risen corpse rat, a small skeletal form wreathed in smoky shadow, stood at his feet. It was even smaller and less substantial than smoke. Risen created, corpse rat, shadow. A rank, E-. Abilities, scouting, nuisance bite. Loyalty, absolute. He willed it to stay hidden in the shadows at the edge of the glowrod light. One soldier. It was a start. Chapter 23. The slimefester burst with a wet, disgusting pop, showering the area in ectoplasmic slime. Rorik's shield took the brunt of it, sizzling slightly. Clear, Lyra announced, wiping her knife clean. Silas nodded, breathing heavily. Good work. Jax, how's the map? Is this the main nest? Jax checked his device. According to the mana signatures, the epicenter is just ahead, past this junction. It's a large open chamber, probably an old runoff reservoir, reading one major signature, and dozens, maybe hundreds of minor ones. A hive, Silas muttered. All right. We hit it fast and hard. Lyra, can you get a vantage point? Lyra scanned the tunnel roof. Negative. Too unstable. I'll be on the ground with you. This is where it gets messy, Silas said, looking at each of them. Kaelen, you stay at the tunnel mouth. If this goes south, you fall back and call for backup. Understood. That's an order. Kaelen nodded. It was a sensible tactic. It also gave him the perfect position. They stacked up by the entrance to the reservoir chamber. It was a vast, circular space, filled with murky, knee-deep water, and it was teeming with corpse rats and slimefesters. In the center of the chamber, perched on a mound of refuse and bones, was a massive, pulsating sac, the Rat Queen. It was a grotesque, immobile creature that continuously spawned new minions. On my mark, Silas whispered. 3, 2, 1, go! The team burst into the chamber, weapons blazing. It was instant chaos. Kaelen stood at the tunnel mouth, his heart pounding not with fear, but with anticipation. This was his chance. As his guildmates engaged the horde, he moved along the periphery, staying in the shadows. Every time a phantom was slain near him, he was there. A quick, subtle gesture, a flicker of shadow, and another core was bound. He didn't create the risen immediately. He stored the converted cores in a pouch. The process was faster now, more instinctual. Risen cores stored 4, 7, 12. He was a ghost, a scavenger on the battlefield, building an army in the shadows while the light-bearers fought and died. Chapter 24. The battle was not going well. The Rat Queen, though immobile, was spewing corrosive globs of acid and continuously summoning more rats. Rorik's shield was dented and smoking. Jax had a nasty gash on his arm from a lucky hit, and Lyra was burning through her ammunition faster than she could reload. We are getting overwhelmed. Jax yelled, bisecting a rat only for 2 more to take its place. We need to pull back. Lyra shouted, firing her pistol point-blank into a slimefester. Silas swore, cleaving a rat in 2. Fall back to the tunnel. Kaelen, get ready. Kaelen saw his opportunity. This was the moment. As the team began their fighting retreat, he didn't fall back. He stepped forward. Kaelen, what are you doing? Silas roared. Ignoring him, Kaelen raised his hand. He reached into the pouch at his belt, not for the cause, but for the sense of authority the warden had given him. He focused on the dozen converted cores, and on the hidden risen rat he had created earlier. Risen, deploy. He didn't need to say the words, but they helped him focus. He threw the pouch into the air. Instead of cores scattering, shadows erupted from it. 12 new risen corpse rats materialized in plumes of smoke. their eyes glowing with silver light. Simultaneously, the hidden risen rat he'd made earlier, along with Smoke, who he now released from its core, shot out from the shadows. 14 shadowy forms now stood between the retreating guild and the horde of phantoms. A stunned silence fell over his teammates, broken only by the skittering of the real phantoms. What? Jack stammered. Kaelen's mind was a whirlwind of simple commands. He couldn't issue complex tactics, but he could project intent, protect, defend, attack the enemy. His risen army surged forward. They were weaker than the live phantoms, but they were fearless, relentless, and fought with a silent, coordinated purpose. They didn't need to win. They just needed to hold the line. The real phantoms, confused by the sudden appearance of these shadowy kin that attacked them, without mercy, faltered. The pressure on Silas and the others eased instantly. Now, Kaelen said, his voice calm and cold in the chaotic chamber. Kill the queen. Chapter 25. There were no questions, no arguments. The shock was overridden by ingrained survival instinct. With Kaelen's risen holding back the tide, the path to the Rat Queen was clear. Lyra. The core. Silas yelled. Lyra didn't hesitate. She dropped her empty pistol, raised her rifle, now that she had a clear line of fire, and took a single, steadying breath. The report of the shot was deafening in the enclosed space. A specialized, armor-piercing round tore through the bloated sack of the Rat Queen. There was a high-pitched shriek, and then the creature exploded in a shower of foul-smelling mana and dissolving flesh. The effect was immediate. The remaining phantoms in the chamber shuddered and began to dissipate, their connection to the hive mind severed. Silence descended, heavy and profound. Kaelen's risen, their purpose fulfilled, stood motionless amidst the fading enemy corpses. Then, one by one, they dissolved back into their core forms, which flew back to Kaelen's hand, all except for Smoke, which hovered protectively near his shoulder. He pocketed the 14 cores. His army was back in reserve. He turned to face his team, for sets of eyes were locked on him, filled with a mixture of awe, fear, and utter confusion. Jax was the first to break the silence, pointing a trembling finger at Smoke. You have a pet phantom. That wasn't a pet, Lyra said, her voice hushed. That was an army. You commanded them. Rorick just stared, his jaw slack. Silas walked forward slowly, his axe hanging loosely in his grip. He stopped a few feet from Kaelen, his gaze intense. E-rank hunter. Mana analysis. He said the words as if tasting something foul. Start talking. Now. What are you? Chapter 26. The walk out of the sewers was tense and silent. The mission was a success, but the victory felt hollow. Back at the guild warehouse, Silas dismissed Rorick and Lyra with a sharp gesture, but pointed at Kaelen and Jax. My office. Now. In Silas's cramped office, the guild master leaned against his desk, arms crossed. Jax stood by the door, looking deeply uncomfortable. The truth, Silas demanded. All of it. Kaelen had known this moment would come. He had prepared a story, a half-truth that was closer to reality than the E-rank lie. My awakening test wasn't wrong, Kaelen began, choosing his words carefully. It just couldn't categorize me. My ability isn't mana analysis. It's necromancy. The word hung in the air, heavy and forbidden. Hunter abilities were elemental, physical, psychic. Commanding the dead, the very enemies they fought, was unheard of. It is a power that skirts the edge of darkness. Necromancy, Silas repeated, his voice flat. I can bind the cores of defeated phantoms, Kaelen explained. I can't control live ones. Just the leftover energy. I can create servants from them. They're weak, but they follow my orders. He gestured to Smoke, which he had left outside. The stabilization power is separate, but related. I interact with mana on a fundamental level. I can soothe unstable mana, and I can command the mana left in a dead phantom. It was a good lie. It covered his abilities without mentioning the veil, the warden, or the paradox core. Jax let out a low whistle. So you're a summoner, a necromancer? That's insane. And unbelievably valuable, Silas said, his eyes gleaming with a calculating light. Do you have any idea what this means? A hunter who can turn the enemy's numbers against them? Who doesn't just lose resources in a fight, but gains them? He paced for a moment. This changes everything, but it also makes you 1,000 times more of a target. If the big guilds find out, they will either want to own you or destroy you. The public would panic. He stopped and pointed a finger at Kaelen. This secret stays in this room. Jax, you breathe a word of this to anyone. Even Lyra or Rorik unless I clear it, and you're out. Understood? Jax nodded vigorously. Understood, boss. Silas looked back at Kaelen. Your cover is more important than ever. You are Kaelen, the E-rank scout with good manner sight. You use your pets. Only when there is no other choice, or when we are absolutely certain we are alone. We will develop signals. Code words. A grim smile touched his lips. The Obsidian Star Guild just acquired its first S-rank secret. Kaelen nodded. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me, Silas said. You're now the most valuable asset this guild has, and its greatest liability. Your training starts now. We need to learn the limits of your power. How many can you control? How strong can they get? Can you see through their eyes? The questions came rapid fire, and Kaelen realized Silas wasn't just protecting him. He was strategizing. He was building a future for his guild around this new, unpredictable power. The Ashen Crow had found not just a hiding place, but a nest, and the master of the nest was ready to see how high it could fly. Chapter 27. Over the next week, a new routine established itself. Officially, Kaelen was doing sensory training with Jax. Unofficially, they were in the guild's training area, pushing the limits of his risen. Silas was a harsh but brilliant taskmaster. He devised test after test. Can they carry things? He asked. Kaelen commanded Smoke to lift a training dagger. The imp strained, its smoky form flickering, but it managed to lift the weapon an inch off the ground before dropping it. Limited physical interaction. Noted. Can you see through their eyes? Kaelen focused on Smoke, who was perched on a rafter across the room. He willed a connection. His vision swam, and suddenly he was looking down at himself and Silas from above. The image was grainy, monochrome, and lasted only for a few seconds before giving him a splitting headache. Skill, shared senses, risen, unlocked. Level, 1, basic. Duration, 10 seconds. Cooldown, 60 seconds. Temporary and taxing, Kaelen reported, rubbing his temples. But possible. Silas grunted, making a note on a data pad. Range. They tested it. Kaelen could send Smoke about 100 meters away. Before the connection. Became strained and the risen. Began to fade. Forced to return to its core form. The most important test was capacity. Kaelen summoned all 14 of his risen corpse rats. The training area was filled with small, shadowy forms. He could control them as a swarm, giving them a simple command like go there or attack that dummy. But individually directing 14 was impossible. His mind couldn't handle the multitasking. Swarm tactics are viable, Silas noted. Precision control is not. What about stronger phantoms? This, Kaelen didn't know. His assimilation authority was still only A. He had only tried with minions. An opportunity arose a few days later during a low priority. D-rank cleanup and mana-wisp infestation in a city park. Mana-wisps were harmless, floating balls of light. But in large numbers they could cause electrical disruptions. Their cores were incredibly fragile. While the team dispersed the wisps, Kaelen found a larger variant. A wisp cluster, about the size of a basketball. It was still low-ranking, but it was the strongest phantom he'd attempted to bind. He defeated it with a concentrated pulse of his warden energy, a simple, invisible blast of null mana that unraveled the wisp's form. He caught the core, a shimmering, opalescent pebble. Target acquired. Phantom core, wisp cluster, D-rank, dot. Initiating binding ritual. The process was harder. The core fought back, its inherent instability resisting the order he imposed. He felt a significant drain on his power, his core integrity dipping by 5%. But he succeeded. The risen that formed was not a rat or an imp. It was a floating, shadowy orb with a single, serene silver eye. It was larger and felt more substantial. Risen created, wisp cluster, shadow. A rank, D-. Abilities, light manipulation, minor, mana pulse. Loyalty, absolute. He had his first D-rank soldier. The stronger the phantom, the stronger the risen, but the greater the cost. The equation was clear. He was building an army, one soul at a time. Chapter 28. The summons came not from Silas, but from the Hunters Association. It was a formal, priority message delivered to his private comm. Hunter Kaelen, E-rank. You are required to report to the Office of Anomalous Manifestations for a follow-up evaluation. Time, 1,400 hours. Today. A cold knot tightened in his stomach. The association. They hadn't forgotten about his chaotic initial test. He told Silas immediately. This is bad, Silas muttered, reading the message. The OAM is where they send the freaks and the failures. The ones they don't understand. They poke and prod until they find out why. Will they find out? Kaelen asked, a sliver of fear cutting through his usual calm. Your veil shroud hid you from a simple scanner. The OAM will have more sophisticated equipment. It's a risk. Silas thought for a moment. You have to go. Refusal is an automatic suspension of your license. But we need a contingency. He outlined a plan. Kaelen was to play the part of a confused, weak E-rank to the letter. He was to be cooperative but clueless. If they pressed him about the spatial anomaly in the Whispering Caverns, he was to stick to his stabilization story, framing it as an unconscious, uncontrollable flare of his unique mana. It's thin, Jack said, worried. What if they don't buy it? Then we have a problem, Silas said grimly. But if they try to detain him, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. At 1,350 hours, Kaelen stood before the imposing, sleek tower of the Hunters Association once more. This time, he was directed to a sub-basement level, a place of sterile white halls and silent, automated doors. The Office of Anomalous Manifestations. The name itself felt like a condemnation. He took a deep breath, reinforcing his veil shroud, imagining himself as a blank, empty page. He was Kaelen, E-rank hunter. He was the Ashen Crow, and he was walking into the lion's den. Chapter 29. The room he was led to was more like a laboratory than an office. A severe-looking woman with her hair pulled, back in a tight bun and wearing a lab coat over formal. Attire sat behind a metal desk. Her nameplate read, Director Valeriana. Hunter Kaelen, she said, her voice as crisp and cold as the room. Please, sit. He sat at a. She activated a light tablet, displaying his initial scan results, the chaotic storm of colors. Your initial evaluation was inconclusive. The system registered you as an anomaly. We do not like anomalies. I just want to be a hunter, Kaelen said, injecting a note of youthful earnestness into his voice. Indeed. Her eyes, a piercing grey, studied him. Your first guild assignment was with Obsidian Star, the Whispering Caverns. Reports indicate you identified a spatial anomaly that later stabilized. Coincidentally, your registered ability is mana analysis. It was a feeling, Kaelen said, sticking to the script. I felt the mana in that spot was wrong. Sick. I touched it, and I felt a surge. Then it was better. I don't really know how. Director Valeriana's expression did not change. A surge. How convenient. She stood up. We will be conducting a more thorough scan today. The resonator. A section of the wall slid back, revealing a large, chair-like device covered in glowing sensors and crystalline nodes. Please, take a seat. This was it. The moment of truth. This machine was designed to peer past surface-level mana signatures. Could his veil shroud hold? He sat in the chair. Nodes closed around his head, wrists, and ankles. A low hum filled the room. Warning. High-fidelity mana scan detected. Veil shroud integrity, 98%. 97%. It was holding, but it was under strain. The machine was trying to peel back the layers of his null signature. The hum intensified. The nodes glowed brighter. Veil shroud integrity, 94%. 92%. He could feel it, a pressure against his mind, against the core itself. He focused everything on maintaining the shroud, on being nothing, a void. The scanner whined, pushing harder. Veil shroud integrity, 89%. Suddenly, a new notification, from deep within the Warden protocol, flashed urgently. Paradox core defense engaged. Counterscan initiated. Without his conscious command, the Paradox core reacted. It didn't fight back with force. It did something far more clever. It fed the scanner exactly what it wanted to see. The core projected a false signature back through the scanning beam. A weak, flickering, but coherent E-rank signature, aligned with mana analysis. It was a perfect, believable lie woven from the fabric of his cover story. The scanner's whine subsided. The nodes retracted. Director Valeriana looked at the new results on her screen. She frowned, seemingly disappointed. Results are stable. E-rank. Mana analysis. With a minor subaffinity for environmental mana stabilization. A rare but documented variant. She looked at him. Her gaze still sharp, but lacking its earlier intensity. It seems the initial scan was a fluke. A malfunction. You are dismissed, Hunter Kaelen. He stood, his legs slightly weak. He had passed. The core had protected him. But as he walked towards the door, her voice stopped him. One more thing, Hunter. He turned. The Obsidian Star Guild is a very small organization, ill-suited to nurturing unique talents. Should you ever desire a guild with more resources, the association has a list of recommended partners. Think on it. The offer was clear, and the threat beneath it was clearer. We are watching you. He simply nodded and left, the weight of her gaze following him out. Chapter 30. He reported everything to Silas back at the warehouse. Valeriana, Silas growled, his face dark. She's a shark. She didn't believe you, but she couldn't prove anything. That offer was a test. She wants to see what you do next. What do we do? Jax asked. We do nothing, Silas said. We act normal. We take standard jobs. We keep Kaelen's profile low. No more flashy dungeons stabilizing for a while. He looked at Kaelen. You did well. But the eyes of the association are on us now. We need to be smarter. Later that night, alone in his apartment, Kaelen reviewed his status. The encounter had been a close call, but it had revealed something new about the Paradox core. It wasn't just a tool. It was intelligent. It could act to preserve itself. He looked at his small collection of risen cores. His army in waiting. He had overcome the association scrutiny. He had a guild that, for its own reasons, protected him. He was growing stronger. But Director Valeriana's words echoed in his mind. Ill-suited to nurturing unique talents. He looked out at the sprawling, neon-lit city. A kingdom of light built on a foundation of crumbling reality. He was just one person, with a handful of shadow rats and a few secrets. The war for the Veil was a silent one, fought in the shadows of a world that had no idea it was dying. He had won a few early skirmishes, but he knew, with a cold certainty that settled in his bones, that the true battle was yet to come. The anomaly the Warden had spoken of was out there, growing in the void, and it would not be stopped by secrets and shadows forever. The Ashen Crow had passed its first real test. Now, it was time to grow its wings.